Any updates in the 2 days before the president leaves on who he'll be talking to get his social services and climate change plan done? And then, is there any reaction to criticism on the billionaires' tax as being too cumbersome and open to legal challenges? Are you guys going to stick with that?
So on the first part of your question, the president will have more members down here today. He could certainly have more members down here tomorrow, and we will keep you abreast of all of those. But he has flexibility in his schedule to ensure that he can make those calls, he can invite people into the Oval Office, and obviously this is a top priority to keep moving his agenda forward in advance of his trip. I would also say that there are phones on Air Force One and also in Europe. And so he will continue to be engaged even as we move to the trip. As it relates to the second part of your question was about the taxes component. Yeah. Well, as we've talked about a bit in here, when the president proposed his initial Build Back Better agenda, he rolled out a series of tax reform initiatives that were as important to him as the investment initiatives, because he feels that our tax system is unfair, that it's outdated, and that it was long in need of reforms. And so you're referring to what has been shorthanded out there as the billionaire's tax, is an idea that has been put out there by a number of members of Congress, including our friend Senator Warren, and it is one of the ideas that is under consideration and discussion. I will note that there are a lot of different tax proposals that are out there that are being discussed by members right now as a means of not just paying for the package, but again, making the system more fair, including a corporate minimum tax that would include a 15% corporate minimum. As a reminder, 55 companies last year of the top companies paid zero in tax, and so that would be an important step forward. A global minimum tax, something that would be on the agenda, that is a key part of the agenda at the G20. We're working to get 135 or more than that countries to agree to that. That will disincentivize companies from moving jobs overseas. And enforcement, IRS enforcement, something that Treasury secretaries, Democratic and Republican Treasury secretaries, have said could be an enormous revenue raiser and something that was long overdue. So it is one of the tax proposals out there that is being discussed as we get to this stage of the negotiations.
And then if I could just follow quickly, the question was asked of Jake on going overseas and pushing on climate and pushing on some of these other things when you're having trouble getting it done at home. Jake made the point that these politicians are sophisticated and understand domestic politics is complicated. But how is the president going to go about talking about this? It's going to definitely loom large if there isn't a deal by the time he gets on that plane on Thursday.
Well, I would just echo a little bit of what my colleague Jake Sullivan said, which is these global leaders are sophisticated. They're familiar themselves, although they all have different systems, with how you legislate here in the United States. They watch closely. They know that it can take some time. And what the president is going to go to the G20 and COP26 with is either agreement, which, as he said, is his preference, or a commitment to continue to press forward on what will be the largest investment in addressing the climate crisis in U.S. history, 6 times the size of the Recovery Act, which would be the second largest investment in climate in history, and a commitment to do everything he can through executive action and through working with the private sector. So global leaders, I think the point Jake was making is that global leaders, one, understand that it can be a lengthy and messy process, bills becoming a law here in the United States, and also they have seen the president raise up climate as an issue that is a central priority for him in his presidency. Go ahead.
Well, on that, I get the idea that global leaders are sophisticated and watch our system closely. Would it be easier to convince the rest of the world to adopt these aggressive climate change proposals if he went there with the U.S. having done so already?
Well, Ed, as the president has said, it would be his preference. Yes, that's why we're pressing so hard. That's why the president has space in his schedule to move forward and move his economic agenda forward. But it is also important to note that we have made a significant amount of progress, and we are almost there, and that the president is on the verge. We are all on the verge of passing a bill that is the largest investment in addressing the climate crisis in history. And of course, global leaders take note of that too.
And is there, you don't have to name it necessarily, but are U.S. officials aware of a country, perhaps, that would adopt these changes if he showed up with the U.S. having done so?
Not that I'm aware of that are looking for a vote in order to move forward, no.